Hi everyone, this is Mike Shaw with Planet for Photographers, and in this video tutorial we're going to talk about the Meteor Shower feature. To access it, drag down from the title bar to show the ephemeris page chooser like this. And here you can find the Meteor Shower page, which is the fourth page under the Night Photography category. And on the Meteor Shower page, you can click on the Meteor Shower name button to show the list of the meteor showers. And as landscape astrophotographers, we're interested in the three major meteor showers: the Quadrant Heads, the Perseids, and the Geminids. This is the peak date for each of these meteor showers, the brightness index R, and the ZHR, the zenith hourly rate. And the zenith hourly rate, or the ZHR, of a meteor shower is the number of meteors a single observer would see in an hour of peak activity, assuming the conditions are excellent. And of course, the bigger the ZHR, the better. And from here, you can see that the three major meteor showers have the most ZHR, comparing with all the other meteor showers where the ZHR is smaller. The Eta Aquarids is also good with a ZHR of 60. But many of the other meteor showers are a little less interesting just because they don't have the same number of meteors. However, the Leonids, for an example, it shows a ZHR of 15, and that's just an average value. But on 2009, the ZHR of Leonids ranged from 100 to 500 on November 17th. Now, unfortunately, based on the scientists' predictions of the astronomers, we're not going to be able to see such high activity again for many years. But in some years, 2027, 2034, we might see a higher ZHR of 40 to 50. And this just depends on where the Earth passes through the dust cloud left behind the respective comet. And the last two columns that you see are the elevation angle and the azimuth of the meteor shower radiant. Now, you may wonder why all the meteor showers are named after the constellation names. And the reason is it's because of the radiant, position of the radiant of the meteor showers. The Perseids, for example, are meteors that appear to come from a point within the constellation of Perseus. Now, of course, we know that the meteors don't actually come to have anything to do at all with the constellations. That's where they appear to come from in the night sky. That's because, of course, the stars of the constellations are much further away than the Earth's atmosphere where the meteor shower actually takes place. But back in the day, when people would see the meteors, they thought they actually came from within these constellations. So the easiest way to name them is to use the constellation name for the radiant. And the only exception being is the Quadrant Heads, which is the name for an old constellation. And we don't use it anymore in the 88 modern constellations. And today, the radiant for the Quadrant Head is located in Boötes. However, the old name was still kept for this meteor shower, and that's the way it is. So we're just going to go with that today. All right, so let's select the Perseids for an example. And we're going to long press on the peak date of August 13th. And when we do that, now the date is August 13th, as you can see down here below. And we can adjust the time slider to go into the night. And you can see the radiant of the Perseids on the map. How great is that? Now, of course, when it's not very obvious seeing it from the map, we usually want to use the VR Viewfinder to view it, one of my favorite features of Planit. So we can long press on the Perseids like this, and what that does is that centers the viewfinder at the radiant. How great is that? And now we're going to use the VR viewfinders to show you how to come up with a shooting plan for the three major meteor showers. First, let's change our focal length to 14 millimeters, which is a good wide focal length lens to use. And I often use the 14 millimeter lens just because it captures as much sky as possible. And the more sky, the better are your chances of capturing a meteor during a meteor shower in general. You can also use a 20 or 24 millimeter lens, or you could even prepare several cameras to point at different locations in the sky. All right, so here we can see Polaris, and we can adjust the time until we can see the radiant. We can see the radiant of the Perseids rise. And this takes place about the time when the dark night starts. Now, generally speaking, when the radiant is lower than about 10 degrees elevation angle, it's pretty hard to capture any meteors because they're just too low to the ground to be observable, generally speaking. And if you have significant light pollution in particular near the ground, the light from the atmosphere really impacts your ability to see the meteors. But when the meteor shower radiant is above about 10 degrees, say, we can really start to capture the meteors. And so the higher the radiant is, the better. Now, that's great up until it reaches about this point right here when it's almost out of the frame. And at that stage, the night is almost over anyway, so that's just fine. And also from this simulation, you can see that we have Polaris in the frame for the whole period. And this is important for how we post-process these images. I want to say a few words about that in a minute. If you haven't ever actually done much work taking meteor shower photos before, there's a couple of things you want to keep in mind. When we actually see the meteor flying through the air, we can't shoot it because it's over. It happens too fast, and there's no way we can capture it on a camera. So the only way to capture the highest number of meteors that we can is to keep the camera running all night long by just pointing it at a certain part of the sky and basically keeping our fingers crossed. And what happens then is the camera just takes one photo after another continuously all the night long. And admittedly, the majority of the photographs won't actually have any meteors in them. But if we're lucky enough, some of the photos will in fact contain meteors. And then during post-processing, what we do is we get those photographs and we merge them into a single composite meteor shower photograph, and we combine that with a foreground to create the final photo. But now keep in mind, because these photographs were taken at different times, the stars are moving and they're not going to be at the same location in consecutive images. So before merging them, the first thing we have to do is to rotate the photo so that the stars will match with a reference photograph, and then we can use a mask and blend everything together in Photoshop. And how can we do this rotation and matching? The easiest way is to rotate the photograph using Polaris as the rotation center. And it's basically, if you're familiar with how star trails are formed, you're going to understand why we rotate the photograph this way. We do this to all the photographs that have the meteors and get them all lined up. And this way, at the end, except for some random meteors, most of the meteors will appear as if they originated from the same location in the sky, and that's the radiant of the meteor shower. So with that being said, to judge whether a reference photograph is super important, you have to also judge the composition with the foreground. So the radiant is in an ideal position relative to the foreground. Maybe a third of the way in the frame, not too close to the edge, or even sometimes close to the center of the frame. This way the final photo will look better and more balanced with all the meteors. And that's why deciding the composition beforehand is so important. So using the Perseids as an example, there are two possible compositions. One is we can use the landscape orientation like this. Also, the other alternative is to use a portrait orientation like this. The radiant is right here, Polaris is right here, and the one that you choose really depends on your foreground. It's up to you to decide which one you'd like to use. All right, so right here is the starting point, and as we let time go by, you can see how the radiant rises. And as you can see, for the whole duration, we don't really need to adjust the composition, and we'll still be able to keep Polaris and the radiant in the frame. And that's pretty straightforward. And the Perseids are usually pretty straightforward because of this. The radiant is from Perseus, which is relatively close to to Polaris. Now another good meteor shower are the Quadrant Heads, and we can go there by tapping on it like this. And we can long press right here to set the date, the current date, to the peak date of the meteor shower. Now the Quadrant Heads radiance center rises later that night, which is about 1 a.m., and that goes all the way through till the dawn. Now compared with the Perseids, the distance of the Quadrant Heads radiant is further from the Polaris, and as you can see, it also gets very close to the edge of the frame. And this is not good because we might miss some meteors that shoot out to the right, so we may consider using a landscape orientation for the Quadrant Heads, and that gives us a bit more of a buffer on the edge of the radiant, and we can still keep the Polaris in the frame. So now, as we adjust the time slider like this, you can see that the radiant is pretty much in the frame, and when the radiant is almost out of the frame, it's pretty close to dawn anyway, so that's fine. And when the radiant is at this position, we can take a photo for the foreground as well as a reference photo so that it has a balanced composition. And that's pretty much how you go about planning for the Quadrant Heads. Now you can still keep the camera without moving it, but it's better to use the landscape orientation. And in comparison, you can use both the portrait and the landscape orientation for the Perseids. So finally, let's look at the Geminid meteor shower. So once again, we'll select it, and we'll long press on the peak date to set the current date to that date. And the radiant also appears when the night starts, which is the same as the Perseids, but you'll notice that the distance to the Polaris is even further. Even if we use the landscape orientation, the radiant is almost at the edge of the viewfinder. And keep in mind, we're already using a 14mm focal length lens, which is already very wide. If we use a 24mm focal length lens, it's even worse. It's almost impossible to include both. So in this case, I'd suggest you take a reference photograph at such a composition, and then you just remember the time and when you took the photograph. Or you could even use a panorama to capture more sky in the ground. And at other times, here's another option you might consider, is to use an equatorial mount to track with the radiant and just try to capture as many meteors as possible. And the meteors can also fly very far away from the radiant, and that's because the radiant can rise super high, even overhead. And in this case, it goes completely outside of the viewfinder. And where does it actually go? It actually goes all the way over to the west side. So we have to change the azimuth of the viewfinder like this to show it, because it's going to set over in the west. And if you only have a fixed camera, you're going to miss a lot of meteors in the late half of the night. Now, some people even bring, like I said, 3 or 4 cameras with 14mm lenses to capture the whole sky dome. And that's certainly an option if you're prepared to make that investment. So in summary, for Perseids, you can use a landscape or a portrait orientation, include the Polaris and the radiant in the viewfinder, and there's no need to adjust the camera for the whole duration. For the Quadrantids, it's better to use a landscape orientation and to include Polaris and the radiant in the viewfinder, and again, there's no need to adjust the camera for the whole duration. Now for the Geminids, it's better to capture a reference photo that includes the foreground, and for all the other times, if you can, try to use an equatorial mount to track the meteor shower radiant, or use several cameras pointing in different parts of the sky to try to capture the whole sky. Well, that's it for the meteor shower tool. Until next time, this is Mike Shaw saying thanks for watching and enjoy your meteor shower planning with Planit.